It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday, and yes, I sound a little low energy. I'm still recovering from a health episode I had on Tuesday. Long story short, I have a lousy nerve in my neck that acted up, and it messed me up badly on Tuesday ish on Wednesday. I got through my client sessions on Wednesday. Was about 75% better Thursday. So that's why there was no Twitch Tuesday. And that's why there was no video on Wednesday. Because I couldn't sit there and babysit a download on Tuesday. And then Wednesday night, I check my Twitter DMs and they've blown up. And this is what the rest of this video is going to be about. Because I can't reply to every single person. I put stuff on Twitter, but apparently stuff ended up on Reddit, and there's been all this chatter. So, I am going to take advice I got and make a video and tell the truth. And let the chips fall where they may, because some of you have known I've had a stalker for 10 years. And she sticks her head up every so often with some tale of woe, pretending to be another person. Well, this time she's pretending to be a trans person, a trans woman with another tale of woe. And I'm going to go through. I'm not going to link to the blog post because one of the things she does is she likes to pepper her name through the blog post where she's accusing me of all these horrible things and talk about a wonderful person herself in the third person is to get attention. So I'm not going to say her name because one, she can't accuse me of harassing her or getting people to harass her, which she's already done, but can't say that if I don't say her name. Two, she wants me to say her name so she can get attention. More on that in a bit. But yeah, I'm going to go through all the accusations. And I'm going to show ones that just don't make any internal sense. And others that there's proof to the alternative. And you can judge for yourself who's lying and who's telling the truth, right? So this is not something I'm comfortable with. And based on the accusations against me, I'm really not comfortable doing the business end of these videos, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm not gonna let her knock me off my stride. So help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. 6 people need subsidized services. Coffee.com/LeannaK. And since we're just promoting everything, Calidus Chronicles, Song W. Erickson. Song had a great first week. Thanks to you guys. Thank you for those who bought the book. Thank you to those who reviewed the book. And extra thank you for those who told me that they thought it was great. Calidus Chronicles, Volume 1, available on Amazon. Song also has a link tree. If you don't like Amazon, you can chip some money to her, Ko-fi, and chip, and then it's serialized there as well. It hasn't been edited, and we took another pass on it and things like that for the book. But yeah, that's all the ways you can support Song. So let's get into this marvelous work of fiction. And yes, I am going to use sarcasm as a cope. I understand this is very serious. Having to respond to repeated slander is tiring. But you'll see the ridiculousness. Again, I have copied this into a Word document, so the text is there, but I have removed the name of the person and just wrote person in all caps where the name would be. So you can see exactly what they said, but she's not getting the attention she so craves. Okay, here we go. Ready? Leanna Kersner, aka Red Leanna K, aka It's Not Therapy, tried to provoke this trans woman to suicide. I am not It's Not Therapy. That is my podcast, right? That is my Twitter handle and some other handles. But I am not It's Not Therapy, but I'm just being nitpicky here. I am a trans woman living in Ontario, and while I am deeply tired of literally everyone wanting my existence to end, well, that's a sentence. I am deeply tired of literally everyone wanting my existence to end. There is one person in particular who actively tried to drive me to suicide. No, it's not Matt Walsh. It's not J.K. Rowling. It's apparently me. Apparently me. I actively drove this person to suicide as opposed to passively try to drive someone to suicide. I don't know how you do that, but no person should ever have to go through what I put this completely fictional person through. Writing this post is the opposite of easy, but I am tired of keeping all of this inside, and I am tired of seeing awful people scam others out of thousands of dollars when the rest of us have to struggle just to survive, to make ends meet. Okay, 2 accusations now. Drove her to suicide, or tried to provoke this trans woman to suicide. First accusation, second accusation, scammed out of thousands of dollars. You'd think there'd be a shred of evidence of either of these claims, right? Especially the scam part. Keep that in mind. My trans siblings, brothers and sisters and others, right? Leanna Kersner is not our ally. She may be the enemy of our enemy, but she is not our friend. No matter how she seems to be acting on our behalf or how much she seems to care about us. Seems is the key word there, by the way. All right. She uses the word ally, and that is the first thing I have receipts for. Anybody who follows my content knows how I feel about the word ally. I get in trouble because I don't want to be called an ally. I don't like being called an ally. And I'm going to show you every time I either pushed back on the term ally or mocked people who identify as allies. Here we go. Ready? No one is required to be an ally. Oh, I took shit for that. Look at those stats, right? Took shit for that one. No one's required to be an ally. You know, when are male allies in quotes, right? Choice cut of the day. You have something of a point, but criticism shouldn't come from allies. I hate the term ally, but you never listen to the haters. That's why you need friends who will tell you when you're screwing up, right? One treat, showing the many things wrong with the male, gender-critical, feminist ally. You get the point, right? Not a fan of the term ally. So why would someone who knows me so well and like deeply, apparently I had enough of a connection to this person to try to drive her to suicide, right? Why would she feel the need to say I'm not an ally? I say I'm not an ally. I don't believe in the concept. Allies are people who do for each other, right? Not people who sit there and just agree with freaking everything, right? I don't define allyship the way, the protest left does. So that's the first thing that's wonky about this. And that may seem like a small thing, but based on the accusations that follow, things add up. Leanna Kersner is a masterful narcissistic liar and manipulator who is very good at pretending to care about others because she likes to use other people. By suddenly being all in for trans rights, she is performatively jumping on being vocal about supporting trans folks at best. At worst, she is actively looking for more vulnerable people, blah, blah, blah. By suddenly being all in for trans rights. Suddenly, just now, suddenly, right? Suddenly. I brought receipts for that one too. How do we define suddenly? The last 6 months? The last year? anything that no longer is defined as suddenly, right? Well, boom! I have tweets November 2nd, 2020. Now, this was hard to find because I had to go back years, but be careful about how you're using biological. Biology isn't merely anatomical. There are physiological metrics at play. That's why I insist that trans people can't be cured. There's a physiological underpinning to their identity. Suddenly, I'm all in. That's pretty all in, by the way, saying there's a physiological underpinning to their identity. 2020. Suddenly, back in 2020. So already this person's pretty full of crap, right? But oh, it gets better. Right, here we go. I know her tricks well because I was once one of those vulnerable people that Leanna Kirstner knowingly took advantage of and caused harm to. Wait a second. Did I try to provoke her? Or did I really harm her? Oh, oops. You know, and with Leanna Kirstner now masquerade, painted faces on parade, masquerading as someone who cares about trans folk. Suddenly, 2020, that's a long fucking masquerade. That's like Batman level masquerade, okay? And who uses her large Twitter platform to collect followers, i.e. funders for her next vanity project. I knew I had to say something before she exploits or harms anyone else like she did to myself and many others. Asterisk. This asterisk leads to the bottom where she put the name of the person she actually is and pretending isn't to be, linking to this person's website. Okay, so I harm people, many people, and many others. Keep that in mind, right? I'm harmful. Okay. I am deeply worried. You notice all the deeply, literally everyone deeply. I am deeply worried about how many people Leanna Kirstner is now scamming out of money with her It's Not Therapy and Leanna Cares chats and bubbles and all the rest. Because yes, providing a service is scamming. Okay. Yeah. That's opinion. Using my likeness, technically I could report for this because she's using my likeness and that's against Twitter policy, but reporting anything on Twitter is a crapshoot, so I'm not going to promote that. But It's Not Therapy exploits trans rights for financial gain. Let's talk about that idea that supporting trans rights results in financial gain. The opposite is true right now. When you're not going, when you're not, I'm a trans person, I'm going to say all the right things. I don't. You saw the Hogwarts Legacy stuff, right? I was against that boycott, or the boycott attempt. It failed horribly, but that's part of the reason I was against it. Boycotts don't work. But unless you're willing to say all the right things, supporting trans people, and even if you do say all the right things, supporting trans people costs you followers, subscribers, and money. It does. There's no denying that. I've lost about 1,000 subscribers since I started since I said, look, this is a trans-friendly channel. Misgendering people is not allowed. Trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people are real. Lost 1,000 subscribers. Okay. Now, I don't regret that. I don't regret my position. You guys know, I don't algorithm chase. I don't do drama. This is my own drama, but I don't camp on other people's drama. You guys know I stopped doing, the contentious things that get a lot of clicks. So this accusation makes absolutely the opposite of sense. It is factually wrong. There's no money in supporting trans rights the way I do. Because you either have to be totally left-wing and check a whole bunch of boxes, or you have to go full-on transphobe and check a bunch of boxes. when you take the position, I really completely support trans rights. I absolutely believe trans people are who they say they are. I think medical care should be between a family and their doctor. But I don't support every boycott. I don't believe in the most out there rhetoric. There's no money in that. None. None. So that's just nonsense. And that's just a point of interest, right? Does that disprove the other terrible things she says about me? No, it's just, this is a supposition that's wrong. See, I knew Leanna and her husband Stephen personally. I knew them before I found myself and claimed the woman I always knew I was. And at one point I was naive enough to think that we were actually friends, that they cared about me as a person, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. In fact, when we were friends, Leanna exploited me for free labor for a number of months for one of her vanity projects. She starts naming things later on, so it's very notable that she doesn't name what the project was here. Because I did a lot of charity work that was volunteer. Nobody got paid except the charity. So keep that in mind that she doesn't name what the project was here. At the time, I was happy to help out a person who I thought was a friend, and I didn't think to question what she asked of me to do or asked to be paid for my work. You notice she said she didn't ask to be paid for her work, but also said I exploited her for free labor. Which is it? Either you knew you weren't getting paid and that was the deal, or you were exploited for free labor. It can't be both. Okay. Especially because it started out with her asking for very small things. Leanna made it seem like she really needed my help and that she thought I was brilliant. She did all of the tricks that narcissists do when they groom you. Now, it is not true, in fact, that this person, the real person who is not trans, worked for free. She got in to conventions for free because she worked the table. It was work in exchange for a badge. So that ain't true that it was free. That's compensation. Those badges can be worth between $50 and a few $100. And you only get so many ones for the table. I paid for badges for the people who volunteered. Emphasis on volunteered. And we always had food for the staff. They were always comped. There was no money because it was charity. But they were compensated in trade. So that's just not true. But this is also around the time that I was starting to grapple with who I really was. And I wasn't in the best headspace overall. Let's back up, okay? Remember, I knew them before I found myself and claimed the woman I always knew I was, okay? So before. And now, this was around the time I was starting to grapple with who I really was. And I wasn't in the best headspace overall. Leanna was someone I confided in about what I was thinking and going through. So was it before or was it during? And she convinced me that I was confused and should go on antidepressants instead of looking more into transitioning. Okay, so we have a conflict about the timeline. I knew them before I claimed the woman I was. She said I should stop transitioning. That's a timeline problem. Oops. But also, does that sound like me? Think about the stuff I do. Does that sound like me who would tell somebody don't look more into transitioning? If you think this sounds like me, okay, but gets better. Anytime I was having a rough day and needed to talk, we would talk about me and where I was for maybe 5-10 minutes. But then Leanna would complain to me for hours about various people who had apparently wronged her, were out to get her, all of it. Okay, sure. That's a claim they can't substantiate, right? There's just no way to prove that one way or the other. Anybody who knows me knows if I really wanted to do that, I could just drama dump on YouTube regularly and probably get a lot more clicks. People love that shit. This isn't what I do. And hours? I don't have hours. I didn't then, I don't now. But anyway, people who did her wrong. And okay, if I was so horrible, why'd they keep contacting me when they had a bad day? Oops. People who did her wrong, even knowing what I was going through, this is one. Tell me, does this sound like me? Okay. Even knowing what I was going through, again, now I know they were transitioning. Not before. Now I know they're transitioning. She kept saying things like, oh, you're a man. You don't know what it's like for women like me. Inner Kratos. Does that make sense? This one's beautiful, though. We would be chatting on Skype. You can tell, like, how long has it been since people use Skype? Skype! We would be chatting on Skype, and I know she could see my face fall. Not she saw my face fall. I know she could see. Remember what I pointed out about the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp stuff? I knew he was going to attack my sister. He meant he didn't actually attack her. He hadn't done anything yet. I know she could see my face fall. And yet, this part actually made me laugh. And yet she kept saying stuff like this to me about how manly I was. All of it. Okay, I have a segment called Manly Mondays, but if you guys know my type who watches this channel, okay? You know I don't get Thor. Does it sound like I would praise someone as manly? Like, that's just funny. If you know anything about what I'm about. Especially since this is a person who in some of her other tirades likes to pick on my husband's height. Because he's not very tall. Right? Okay. This is when it gets right. Leanna refused to recognize that I was a scared little girl inside a body I hated and felt trapped in. Or perhaps she was actively taking joy in knowing how upset her comments made me. I honestly don't know. Okay, girl, did you think I was your friend back then? Or was I torturing you? Because why would you think someone who did the things I claimed to do was your friend? This is stupid mask off villain shit. And even if I was a person who would be, oh, you're so manly. You know, even if I was somebody who did that crap, which I ain't. Like, I can't even say it with a straight face. What the hell? Back in the Skype days. Like, oh, and ICQ, it was a thing. Like, this woman's been stalking me for 10 years. Okay? 10 years. Just the sheer age of this. This is not a person who would even know if I was this terrible person that back then, whether I had a change of heart or not. If the contacts we had were back in the Skype days, you know, they don't know who I am now. If any of this was even remotely true, which it ain't. God, I fucking Skype, man. I hated Skype. Anyway, keep going on. I was naive enough to believe that Leanna Kersner was a good person who was being hurt, instead of recognizing that Leanna was in fact the predator who was knowingly causing harm to these other people. Who's the other people? Wait. Was it causing harm to you, girl? Was I torturing you directly like you just said in the last paragraph? Or these other people? Who is it? There are no other people. It's the stalker. Actually, there's one other person that a piece of bullshit came from that I recognize in this, but we'll get to that. Okay. While we were friends, and while she never came out and told me to do this for her. While we were friends, and while she never came out and told me to do this for her, there are a handful of people who Leanna manipulated me into harassing on her behalf. I never told her to harass people, but she harassed people on my behalf. You guys know what I'm about with that too, and have been for years. Do not get involved in my shit. You know, the fact that I've taken out all the names in this, not showing any identifying details. Precisely because that's bullshit. Does this make any sense? Right? And while she never came out and told me to do this, she manipulated me into harassing. Well, if somebody doesn't tell you to do it and you take it on yourself to be a harasser, you made that choice. Nobody made you do that, first of all. You know, we're getting all these NPD, HPD, BPD markers right now, and I'm going to be very careful about the BPD thing because there are plenty of people with that condition who don't do this shit. Okay? Okay, hang on. Well, she never came out and told me to do this for her, okay? Next thing, more than once, Leanna had me write and send some nasty emails when she demanded to proofread before I sent to people who are having disagreements with. Okay, did I not tell her to do it? Or did I tell her to do it? Because that's a contradiction, right? Which is it? It can't be both. Like, I may be a masterful manipulator. This girl ain't, okay? Or, in her words, people who are out to ruin her reputation. Oh yeah, no one's trying to ruin my reputation, just people who write blog posts where in one section, they say I never told them to do it. The next, I stood over their shoulder while they were writing it and I demanded I proofread. Galaxy brain, right? This is when it gets real. I was also once asked to speak to police on Leanna's benefit and corroborate that Leanna was being stalked and harassed by a certain person when I had never actually witnessed any of this behavior from the person she claimed was stalking her. Police scare me, so I declined. Leanna was not happy about this. You'd think there'd be proof of that, right? I have gone to the police precisely twice regarding a stalker. One was a guy who was just troubled and went away fairly quickly once the cops talked to him. The other was this chick. The person that this person claims not to be but mentions in this blog. Okay? I didn't ask anyone to corroborate that. I presented emails and texts. That's not how it works in Canada. Now, I was prepared to show up in court and testify that this person was lying when she falsely accused her ex-boyfriend of abuse. I had evidence that it was not true. She accused multiple people of the same self-inflicted injury. But I never, anybody, people know who contact me. They're like, do you want me to do something? I'm like, no. You don't have to watch. You don't have to respond. Just block, report if you feel so inclined. But this is not my way. Leanna also wanted me to back her up when she had to make a complaint about supposed sexual harassment by a male friend of hers, claiming that she suddenly feared for her safety with this man. Again, meanwhile, I had never seen any of this kind of behavior from him. Not with her, not with any woman. Doesn't that sound like a strange sentence? When she had to make a complaint about supposed sexual harassment by a male friend. What about that's something people should be able to complain? Why is that in quotes, right? Claiming that she's... So this is a person who wants you to believe their account that they're being harassed, that they were tried to provoke to suicide, okay? But in the same post, they're gaslighting somebody else who was claiming sexual harassment, claiming that they feared for their safety. No names, no proof, nothing. Does this make sense? This is what narcissists do. They get others to act on their behalf so they don't have to get her own hands dirty. Okay. People don't need a primer on narcissists. They need the facts. You know, if somebody's evidence is this strong, if they have this story to tell your story. Don't armchair diagnose somebody. Okay. Every month or so, it seemed like Leanna had a falling out with someone new. At one point, this included her own young nephew and his parents. Okay, again, if you really are a victim, why are you involving a hypothetical child? Does this make sense? I am so scary. I am so awful. Now you're involving a kid. Does this make sense? Okay. These are the same people she started her failed New Year's Eve event FutureCon for, by the way. Remember I said she didn't name names off the top of what I did what she did the free work for? That was an event. It ran for 3 years. It raised over $10,000 for Epilepsy Toronto. $10,000. That's not a failure. We posted pictures of us going down to Epilepsy Toronto headquarters. This is back in the Facebook days. And presenting them the money. That was $10,000 over 3 years. An event that runs 3 years and raises $10,000 is not a failure. We stopped the event because of this stalker. She kept disrupting events and it caused so many problems that we decided it was better to just stop because people were getting scared. But 3 years and thousands of dollars is not a failure. And the fact that, oh, I did unpaid work, didn't name the unpaid work, but failed event. Does this sound like someone who's scared? Or does this sound like someone who's bitter and has a vendetta, right? In hindsight, I'm certain that these people who had it out for her were simply rightfully standing up to Leanna's bullshit and manipulations. Okay, am I terrifying or am I somebody that can be stood up to? Over time, the unpaid labor or favors that Leanna asked for got bigger, including some things she wanted to borrow from my day job for her benefit, unpaid, of course. Now, okay, a person who's telling the truth is like, she has to borrow this, and this. Okay. I don't remember this person ever having a day job. This is a person who was an unpaid extra in the stadium scene on The Dark Knight and updated her own IMDb page with sexy sports fan for an extra credit in a stadium scene. But I never knew of a job at all. And so what? Why would I pay to borrow something? Right? Is it borrowing or is it buying? Is it renting? What is this? This was also the time I decided to come off the antidepressants and begin transitioning for real. Again, was it before she transitioned or during her transition? There was no transition. It's a crock. People don't mess up these timelines. The time somebody decides to transition, they're acutely aware of what was going on at the time because it's an important part in their life. They don't screw up these timelines as a rule. Okay. I was scared of so much back then. Scared nobody would love me. Scared of how my friends and family would take the news. Scared of how my workplace would treat me. All of it. Leanna knew about my fears and insecurities because I told her, and she used it all against me. Okay, apparently I was a horrible bitch saying you're so manly when she's saying I'm transitioning, I am actually a woman. But she was scared of how her friends would take the news. Well, did her friends take the news badly or was she scared? Oops, I did it again. Okay. The first time I said no to doing an unpaid favor for her. An unpaid favor? Favors are unpaid. Favors are favors. Favors are things you do for friends. You don't pay people for favors. The first time I said no to doing an unpaid favor for her, she called up my workplace and outed me to my boss. Okay, was she afraid of how her workplace would treat her, or did I out her to her boss? There is no boss, there is no workplace, there is no trans woman here. This was long before I was ready to share the news publicly about the woman I was becoming. Not only did this lead to some very awkward workplace conversations about employee appropriateness, whatever that means. Hold on. Were you scared about how your workplace would treat you? Or were you outed at work? Which is it? Neither. It's all real. Leanna began to call me at my workplace regularly to scream at me for letting her down. Eventually, her harassment of me led to me getting fired. Okay, first of all, this is a lie she borrowed from somebody else who absconded with some photos we did at another charity, an unrelated charity. I did a lot of charity work back then. But there were photos people took. I'll give you the details because it's just a nice image. We used to do these things where we dressed up sort of burlesque, like I did my corset thing. And people would come in and we'd take pictures of them feeding them cake, sitting on their lap stuff. This was back in the day, right? You can't do this anymore. But the person got a friend to be the photographer and then took the photos and didn't give them to the people who paid for them. And they were texting me from their work. And I picked them, I called because they were texting. And so I picked up the phone. It's like, look, stop texting me. Let's talk. Where are the fucking photos? I can't talk. I'm going to get fired. Hung up. And then she claimed that I was going to get her fired from work. This is a completely different person who this person is stealing the story from. Wasn't true in the first place, but absolute disclosure, there is a germ of truth to that one. Obviously, my haters talk. I know this particular stalker is in contact with another person who abused another friend of mine, another woman. They all get together and have rant sessions or something, but some of these stories are stolen. And, full disclosure. So there you go. But that's where this particular nonsense story comes from. So this wasn't a lie made up by this particular stalker. This is a lie that doesn't make any sense that she stole. Okay. Because why would somebody getting a screaming phone call at work mean they got fired? It doesn't make any sense, right? And they're outed at work. Employee appropriateness. Keep in mind, trans rights are further ahead in Canada than a lot of other places in the world. Firing a person for being outed at work for being trans is illegal. Okay? And if she was fired for being harassed by the person that outed her at work, that's not an anonymous blog post. That's a human rights tribunal complaint. Just saying. Okay? But back to the melodrama. Then, as I was trying to distance myself from her, one day I got a harassing phone call. After she claimed I was regularly harassing her. Okay. One day I got a harassing phone call from an item I had apparently stolen from Leanna. It was demanded that I return it or pay the replacement item cost, which was quite expensive. You notice they don't name the item? I did confront this stalker over a stolen item, but it was in person at a FutureCon event. It was her ex-boyfriend's cell phone that she stole, broke into his house, left the phone on his bed, and then texted my co-organizer to tell him she did it. I tried to confront her to stop her from taking the phone before she left. I failed. She handed it off to someone, so we searched her bag. We couldn't find it. We know who the person was. I'm not naming names, but yeah, I did confront this person once about a stolen item, and it was stolen. And the most awesome part, he lived with his sister at the time. His sister was pregnant. So she broke into a house where a pregnant lady was sleeping, and psycho left the phone on her ex-boyfriend's bed. So yes, I did once confront this person about a stolen item. But I didn't say she needed to pay for the replacement. There you go. Okay. Not only did I never steal anything from Leanna, this incident happened at a time when I was jobless, so I was barely covering my rent and bills. In this phone call, I was verbally threatened that I might face criminal charges. I might go to jail or be sued, all for something I didn't do. And the person that I spoke with made sure to tell me I would be put with other men where I belong. Yeah. Okay, the person I spoke with, was it me? Oh, she doesn't actually say I was the one that called. So someone called, said something allegedly transphobic. None of this ever happened. It's not real. They said something transphobic, and that's my fault? By the way, y'all know where I stand about where trans women belong when they break the law. They belong in women's prisons, right? Okay, so that's just bullshit. I also got harassing emails on Leanna's behalf from her husband, Steven Kirshner. Names him, nobody else. Didn't name the other person who had just my husband, okay? Who threatened me with lines like, as long as you don't speak ill of my wife, we won't have to tell the truth about who you are and what you've done. That's a threat? Stop your lies or we'll tell the truth? He did say something to her like that, by the way. I was pretty pissed at him for getting involved. He did that, and I understand why, okay? But I was like, stay out of it. This is what she wants. But that is true. But saying, stop your nonsense and we won't have to tell our side is not a threat. But this is how they put it. Basically, try to threaten me into never saying anything about the hell that Leanna Kirshner put me through and the lies she was spreading about me. Hold on, wait up. Was the threat, cut it out or we'll go public? Or was I already spreading the lies? Oops. Okay. A friend very kindly let me know that the Kirshners were also going behind my back, calling mutual acquaintances and telling them that I was mentally unstable, that I was becoming violent, that I should no longer be invited to certain events we were both planning on attending, etc. The ex-boyfriend had a restraining order against her. That's why I was telling people, if she shows up, call the cops. Different story, right? Yeah. It was all lies, but the social exclusion, the rumor went on for months. I watched people who I thought were friends fall off one by one because of the Kersner's manipulation, threats, and lies. You notice, not a single thing. Not a single thing. Where's the evidence? Where's a shred of evidence of any of this? But here's the kicker, okay? Through all of this, Leanna Kersner repeatedly and actively lied about me to many other people, claiming that I was a pedophile, that I was trying to groom young kids, the same anti-trans rhetoric you see other people using now. The groomer shit started like 2-3 years ago. This was during the Skype days. Doesn't line up. By the way, you talked about a child who is a family member of mine. Right? This is the bit. Leanna Kersner also tried to get me committed to a psych ward with other lies about my mental health, and that she was worried I was a danger to myself and others, and that I was having delusions of being a woman because I was sexually attracted to her and acting out. She tried something here in Canada that is called a Form 1. It's actually a Form 2, and you can't Form 2 a person. I actually don't know what a Form 1 is. I'm going to look that up. Hang up. But you can't do stuff like this unless you are a family member. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. Oh, this is wrong. Okay, yeah, I was right. It is a Form 2. Okay. A Form 1 is an application by a physician. By a physician. What's my tagline from It's Not Therapy? I'm Leanna Kersner, and I am not a therapist. I can't Form 1 anyone's ass. I can't. A family member can apply for something called a Form 2, but it's got to be a family member. But I'm not a doctor. I can't Form 1 anyone. This is just a lie. Boom. No doubt here whatsoever. You cannot Form 1 someone if you are not a doctor treating the person. Period. End of story. I mean, that should be it. But the rest of it's really funny. And then it goes on, you know. Now suddenly she's dared to finally stand up to me about 4 times now, according to her narrative, right? And then more threatening and harassing emails. Called her a man in a dress. Explicitly told me to kill myself. Oh, okay. Here's the only talk of trying to get someone to unalive. Okay? And it wasn't by me. By her own words. Let's go back to the title of this thing. Okay? Leanna Kersner tried to provoke this trans woman to suicide. And now we go to the actual provocation. Okay? After so much bullshit, threatening and harassing emails from other friends of Leanna's explicitly told me to kill myself. That the world would be better without trash like me. I won't repeat anything that was said, but it was a lot, especially back then. So according to her, in the immortal words of Shaggy, it wasn't me. She was lying on the counter. It wasn't me. She was lying on the sofa. It wasn't me. I even caught her in a lie. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. By her own words. Remember I said there are facts that don't make sense. There are other things that are not me. It doesn't sound like me. But then there are flat out things that are even internally. There's 3 more pages of this shit. Okay? But that's the ball game there. When you accuse someone of something this horrible, You have to directly make the link that they tried to provoke you, not another person allegedly working on their behalf. Them. Now, in this person's mind, they keep sending emails, naming this person by name, which the blog post then goes on to do as well. It's a Medium post, but I'm not sharing it because attention and avoiding any harassment. But this person sends me emails to my Not Therapy Show address, sent me a screen cap of a tweet of mine talking about having long COVID, and you're beginning to get what you deserve, which is just this shy of the legal threshold for a threat. But yeah, she's doing this. She's pretty much telling on herself there that she's sending emails as other people. But according to her own words, I never provoked anything. Say she's telling the truth that she got emails from other people. It wasn't me. It was other people. She has no idea whether, they told me later that she told them to do it. And the fact that every year or so, she links to the other bullshit she did in this thing, but every year or so, I have to do this. And the reason I'm making this video is it's one place, and look at how long it took to get through there. But it's in one place. Everybody knows the story. My side. This is a person who abused her ex-boyfriend. I knew. I was willing to speak up. She stalked not only me, but multiple other people. This is also a person I tried to help when she claimed sexual harassment from a game dev, and I investigated the story as a journalist. And in my opinion, it was a consensual relationship. She was not fired because of the relationship, but the game dev was stupid, and I told his PR person as much. But the gaming website I was writing for at the time wouldn't publish the story. I ended up doing, it was sort of how to protect yourself at work, or how to make sure that you can, you can prove your case with this stuff. And even based on that couching, they didn't want to run it. They were afraid they'd get sued because the dev was pissed, right? Nobody denied the relationship, which I found interesting. And he was superior to her at the company. But there were other things. And I remember telling them, look, the best thing to do is she says all she wants is an apology. I suggest you give it to her. If she reneges, well, then that's insincerity on her part. But if she's telling me, she's telling other people. And, I got played there. She was probably lying to an extent. See, I admitted a mistake in this because she went to the Toronto Star, anonymous tip. And I got a call at 4:30 on a Friday from a reporter at the general news desk from the Toronto Star, demanding I prove to him that I didn't defraud on a crowdfund. I was like, which crowdfund? Well, we've received an anonymous tip. Well, I've done multiple crowdfunds. Which one do you claim? Well, we have a tip. I said, look, I'm an award-nominated games journalist. I know how journalism works. You have to show me a shred of evidence before you demand I open up my books. And we did escalate that one. And all the editor at the Toronto Star did was offer to talk to us. I'm not interested in talking about that. You do not call someone and demand to see their financial records based on an anonymous tip and no evidence, and not even know what crowdfund you're talking about. I mean, there have been some crowdfunds I've been a secondary participant in that didn't go, but, you know, I wasn't in control of those. Every one with my name on it, and I had one that didn't fund. It was for a friend of mine. But every crowdfund I've done that I've been point on, we've fulfilled. It was Lady Bits and it was Boss Fight, right? So, and every time I pop up on some sort of media, this stalker contacts them and tries to tell them I'm a terrible person. She contacted the radio station where It's Not Therapy originates at and pulled the same thing. And I got a message from them saying, do you know about this? This person seems insane. Yes, you know. And all of this behavior is completely legal in Canada, by the way, for those of you who think that we don't have free speech here. You can lie about someone all you want. They have to sue you for defamation. And if you have no money, there's nothing to be done. You know, you spend thousands of dollars and you don't get a payout because there's nothing to take, right? This is also a person who got evicted for defecating in a common area in the apartment she lived in. Oops, there was a camera there. She fought that eviction. She showed me the paperwork for it. That's how I know what she did. She didn't tell me she shit in a common area and a camera saw it. It was in the court documents. There's a long and twisted history there. She accused her ex not only of cutting her, which she was walking around showing everybody she'd drawn a smiley face on it. And it was here, which is not a defensive wound, and it was pinned straight. It's not a defensive wound, and that's not a wound that someone else is going to make on you. But she originally accused a home invader. And I remember taking the call. It was on the way down to a Comic-Con that she was supposed to work the booth on. And she said she'd been attacked by a home invader. And I said, oh my God, just rest. You don't have to come in. No, I'll come. And she shows up. She's showing everybody. She was in the bathroom showing everybody. And that's how we saw it. And then she claims somebody did it to her on the street to someone else. And it was only after the ex-boyfriend, the now ex-boyfriend, broke up with her because she threatened to kill his dog, that the story changed that it was him. And of course, since she had uttered a statement against interest to me, I was a witness. And that's what part of this is about, right? She also claimed he choked her and told me that this person saw it and this person saw it. And so I followed it up. I talked to them because if he'd actually done it, I would have thrown him out. He was another volunteer of mine. Nobody corroborated her story. What they said was he grabbed her, but it was because she'd stolen his phone. Different instance of stealing his phone. She'd stolen his phone and was using it to harass a female friend of his. All right. When somebody doesn't corroborate your story, that ain't good. You notice how the details she's flipped around to make it Darvoed? That's the short truth of things. And that was 10 years ago. Skype days. Skype wasn't 10 years ago. The last time I remember using Skype was during Gamergate. Holy shit. But yeah. Yeah, so like 2015-ish, 2016-ish. After that, it switched to Zoom. But yeah, it's been going on for 10 years. 10 years. This is the person that meant I ended up in PTSD therapy. Because when I went to the police to report the stalking, because she started following me to events. She was watching my social media feeds, watching other person's social media feeds, and showing up claiming she had an invite. She was messaging people, hey, I understand there's a party going on here, here. Can I come? And they were too intimidated by her to say no. So when it came to the cops, she claimed she was invited by showing them a screen grab of a piece of the message. I didn't ask them to get involved. She used it. And when I had people mad at me going, I don't want to be involved, it's like, fine. So I just stopped associating with any of those people because they won't be involved. Fine. And I can't be involved with them because they're saying where these parties are. And it was a loophole jurisdictions. One event happened in the city of Toronto. One event happened in York Region. And you have to report in the area you live. And because they didn't share records, I don't know if they do this, it was years ago, but because they don't share records, they couldn't prove a pattern. So they couldn't file a stalking charge. And this was the time the cops said, I said, what do I have to do to come back to you? Well, if she walked up to you in a room full of people and punched you in the face, that'd be great. That's what a fucking sergeant at 2 Division York Region said to me. And the awesome thing about this is the original detective on the case was a female cop. But if I'd lived in the city of Toronto, it probably would have turned out very differently. But I didn't. I've moved since then. I'm still not in the city of Toronto. But yeah, it was just because I live in a relatively affluent suburb and so they're not trained in this online stuff. And that's the reality of this stuff. But this has been an hour-long tea spilling video. But because it took so long to get through, this is why I'm doing this once and only once. And we'll be back here the next time she does this. Because what I've been advised to do is exactly this. Whenever she spreads lies, tell the truth. If she ever actually utters a threat, then it's criminal. But until then, this is free speech. You can choose who's telling the truth here. Okay, I'm going to do the help support this channel, even though it's awkward, but would appreciate it. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Ko-fi.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching, and holy shit, after all of this, have a great weekend.